A doctor's desk with a difference today. Rather than looking at recent scientific research, we're going to have a look at a poll that is analysing shocking new data trends since the mobile phone ban came in around about a year ago. G'day, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. Kylie, your initial thoughts when the phone ban came in, were you, like in schools, were you for it? Were you against it? What were you hearing? What was the general vibe?
I'm totally for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't hold much hope that it would make a huge difference.
So Grace was the Education Minister in Queensland when Rebecca Sparrow, myself, Madonna King and a bunch of others wrote an open letter and said, you said that you've done some community consultation and we're not going to ban phones in schools. You haven't consulted and you need to ban them. And so we really put some pressure on, got a lot of people behind it, and there was a backflip. There was a turnaround and phones were banned. Let me share this with you. This is from a news article that appeared mid-Feb. I'm a little bit behind the times here because there's just been so much else going on for us to talk about. But this one needs to be emphasised. This is from news.com.au. Students across the country are less distracted since mobile phones were banned in classrooms, new research shows. A survey from the New South Wales Department of Education revealed 87% of students were less distracted in the classroom since mobile phones were banned a year ago. There's more. I know you want to say something, but there's more. The study, which surveyed 1,000 public school principals, showed 81% of students have seen improved learning. And the last thing, I know you're on the edge of your seat. I love doing this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Last thing, I've got to highlight this because this is big out of South Australia. There's been a 63% decline in critical incidents involving social media and a 54% reduction in behavioural issues, according to Department for Education of South Australia's survey data. Okay, I've said everything I needed to say.
Are you sure?
Yeah. What were you going to say?
They're massive numbers.
Right.
Massive numbers. We're not talking about, a handful of percentages here. This is nearly 100%, really. Like 87%.
Legit.
That's huge.
So I predicted that this would happen. I need to emphasise, this does not mean that we are at the end of school challenges.
No, well, in recent weeks, we've been dealing with some pretty significant challenges that are still happening in the classroom. So just because we've removed mobile phones does not mean that screens are not still having a humongous impact on
Right, kids are still doing the wrong thing on screens, and they're also doing the wrong things on phones at home.
On school buses. And
because the phones aren't banned except during school.
Yeah.
So it's not a panacea. It doesn't fix everything, but no one ever promised that it would. This initial data, though, is really promising, demonstrating that it was the right call.
It was the right call, but for me, I feel like as a parent, what it should actually suggest and say is, and you've been saying this forever, but we need to delay in giving our children access to them.
Well, I'm going to make an even more shocking and provocative point, and that's this. We faced all of this opposition in saying kids don't need mobile phones at schools. But what I'm consistently saying is kids don't need mobile phones.
Yeah.
If you get these kinds of reductions in the school context, imagine the kinds of reductions you would get if you took phones out of kids' hands or took them away from social media in the home context, in the school bus, school camp.
In their friendships. It's astounding.
I don't think that there's any strong argument that you can mount that children need smartphones. And I've said this, I think I've been saying this since about 2016. Kids don't need smartphones, they need smart parents, and smart parents give their kids dumb phones. If you want to know where your child is, if you want to be able to text them, check in with them, make sure they're okay, there are so many devices that they can use that do not have the functionality of a full-blown supercomputer in their pocket. And again, I know that I've just shared this, but these stats are stunning. An 87% drop in student distraction. 81% of students have seen improved learning, a 63% decline in critical incidents, and a 54% drop in behavioural issues.
When you think about the challenges that teachers, principals, and students are dealing with on a day-to-day basis in the classroom, to be able to tick all of those boxes,
Massive.
that it literally changes the environment our children are in.
Yeah, it does. I mean, not enough. There's still more to do. The federal government's going to bring in this legislation, we hope, fingers crossed, at the end of the year, where social media is banned for all kids under 16. Again, that won't solve everything because they're still arguing over what they're going to define social media as, which apps will be okay, which apps won't be okay. Is a messaging app the same as a social media app? And also, kids will still be able to be on games and they will still be able to communicate with their friends digitally, and there still will be problems. So it doesn't solve everything. But these restrictions are important. They're working. They were necessary. After the break, 3 quick take-home messages around how we can keep our kids safe based on what we're learning here. Okay, Kylie, this is the podcast with real parenting solutions every day. Before we talk about the solutions, I guess the take-home messages, the standout ideas that come from this data, I also want to highlight something else. The federal government brought in a new series of laws around vaping. It bans the sale of vapes in corner stores. Came in around about, 6 or 8 months ago now. And data shows that the number of teenagers 14 to 17 using vapes nationwide has declined since those bans came into force. Additionally, vaping rates have dropped by a third in 15 to 29-year-olds, according to the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute, compared to data from 2024 to 2023. So what we're seeing is, and South Australian schools, a reduction of 50% in suspensions related to vaping since the changes.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How reliable are the numbers?
They're as good as any.
Like
they're as good as any data that you can get hold of for things like this. These are surveys of principals. Principals do keep. Well, most schools do keep reasonable statistics on what they're doing in terms of suspensions and expulsions. They absolutely have data on critical incidents. So researchers are collecting the data. The information is. Do you know what? This is a really hard thing for me to say as a social scientist, as someone with a doctorate in psychology. Psychological data and even a lot of health data is actually pretty rubbish. Like if you go and do a chemistry experiment, the data is pure. And that's why they talk about physics and chemistry and even biology as pure sciences. Things like psychology and social sciences are consistently looked down on by the pure scientists because there's so much noise in the data. But
nuance and...
That's right. And you can't measure everything.
Yeah.
But even if it's not completely accurate, it's directional. And when you get this level of number, okay, so we've got 87%, or we've got a reduction of 50%, or we've got a drop in 67%, whatever the numbers are, maybe it's not that good. Maybe it's 43% or 28%, but we're still heading in that direction. Like when you get the numbers this big, it's directional, and that tells us that we are on the right path. We are heading in the right direction. There is value in what we're doing. So we can get caught up on being exactly precise, exactly right. And I know that in our society we care a lot about that. But sometimes it's better to just know that what you're doing is useful, even if you can't be precise with it. And that's the way that I tend to approach pretty much everything that I teach. All of the psychological science stuff. We know that this is usually useful most of the time for most people under most circumstances when things are normal. Right? And that's the best that we can do. And that is helpful. That is useful, even if it's not going to be perfectly correct for everybody. You're unlikely to do harm when the majority of the data points in this direction. That was a longer answer than you were looking for.
No, not at all. Not at all. I guess the concern is from time to time we have these numbers that feel great, but in reality, are they? And we're kind of giving ourselves a pat on the back for achieving something that we may not have. But the understanding that data is directional is definitely helpful.
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, we know that since schools have banned phones, that there's less bullying, there are fewer critical incidents, and children are learning more.
Yeah, because even if the numbers weren't 87 and they were 54,
I'll take that. It was worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And similarly with vapes, there's an improvement here. It's not eradicating the problem. You're never going to eradicate the problem, not in a society this big and this complex, but it's reducing it. It's directionally helpful, and we're seeing positive outcomes as a result.
Well, prevention's always going to be better than repair
Yeah,
in any society. So the fact that we have vapes in our community, we're never going to get rid of them.
Okay, and you could pick any problematic or challenging or unhealthy behaviour, and what we're trying to do is mitigate or minimise kids' access to those challenges.
Yeah.
So here are 3 things that I take from all of this data. Number 1, I kind of want to, you know when you see little kids, they put their thumb on their nose and then they extend their fingers and wiggle them around and they go, no, 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 no. I kind of want to do a bit of an I told you so, because there have been a number of critics who really roused on me and said, you're being reactionary and banning phones in schools won't make one jot of difference, and kids have got to learn how to navigate a world where they're surrounded by this stuff.
This breaks my heart when I hear this. I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and she had a conversation with her child's teacher, and it was the same thing.
I think I'm following you.
It's the same thing, though. Our justification for allowing kids to be exposed to an adult world is that they're going to have to learn. But my kid's 6 or my kid's 9, my kid's 14, they're not an adult.
Right.
And they shouldn't have to be learning to navigate an adult's world at any stage of that childhood process.
So this brings me to my second point, and that is that I still wish government would stay out of our lives as much as possible. I really don't want them intervening. But the reality is, and I hesitate to say it because I hate throwing shade at parents, but the reality is too many parents are not up to the task. They're not doing the job when it comes to kids and screens. And therefore, we need to have government intervention to protect vulnerable people. So the government's intervening. They're actually doing the right thing. We have government intervention for things like gambling, for alcohol, for tobacco, for other drugs, for driving, pick whatever it is you want. All of these things that we know can cause harm. The government says, you know what, if you're an adult, we're going to let you do this because if you choose that as an adult, that's on you. But we need to protect vulnerable people, and children are among the most vulnerable, especially when it comes to their interaction with screens. The government has gotten this right. They're doing the right thing with the social media ban. I can't wait till the end of the year for that to come in, although again, it's not going to be enough, and there's going to be all sorts of holes that we could probably poke in it. I wish that they would do it about pornography. This is the elephant in the room, and the government has been absolutely spineless in dealing with this, and it is at the root of so many of our challenges.
It all comes down to money.
I think that it does. And the loud voices that are saying you can't take away my civil liberties, I shouldn't have to identify myself so that I can click on that website. Now you know too much about me, which is ludicrous because look at what the tech companies know. The tech companies know more than the governments will ever know, giving them all of our information. Last point, and we're out of time, so I'm going to make this 30 seconds or less. The more we get screens out of classrooms, the better children's learning is. The
better their relationships are, the better everything is, like everything.
Yeah, it flies in the face of Kevin Rudd's 2007-2008 education revolution, where every kid needs an iPad or a tablet or a laptop. He got it completely wrong.
He did get it completely wrong, but he's also dealing with a brand new something that nobody understood. The monster in the room. I
don't buy it. I think that it was a terrible choice. I think that giving kids an iPad so that they can learn more about technology and how to navigate the digital world is like giving kids a Tonka truck so that they can become a mechanic. It's just, I think he got it wrong from the outset. Data now is pointing to processing and learning being far better with analog rather than digital learning tools.
100%.
And the best schools in Australia, I'm talking about some of Australia's most exclusive and elite schools, are now starting to minimise and even eliminate technology from classrooms, and they're going analogue. Our kids live better with analogue lives because they've got analogue brains. We're dealing with, as Scott Galloway says,
lazy learners.
That's not what he says. We've got godlike technology, but we're using Paleolithic neural architecture to navigate it, and our brains just can't do it. It's not how we were designed. So that's the Doctor's Desk episode today. Great chat. Good to see the data coming through, and nice to feel a little bit vindicated, but more than that, nice to see that children are able to do better because we're making these decisions on their behalf that are in their best interests. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. More information and more resources to make your family happier are available at happyfamilies.com.au.